and there's one on each table. So, and then here's the other one.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2023 All in Education MAPA Summit. At this moment, we ask that you please find your seats. Our event will begin in 5 minutes. All in Education would like to take a moment to thank our Adelante sponsors, Vitalis Health Foundation and ADM Group. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2023 All in Education MAPA Summit. At this moment, we ask you to please find your seats. Our event will begin in 2 minutes. All in Education would like to take a moment to thank our Paso a Paso sponsors, Helios Education Foundation and Pharaoh's Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2023 All in Education MAPA Summit. At this moment, we ask that you please find your seats. Our event will begin in 1 minute. All in Education would like to take a moment to thank our Destino sponsor, SRP. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2023 All in Education MAPA Summit. And now, please welcome to the stage President of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and our MC for today, Mónica Villalobos.
Hola, buenos días. Buenos días, ¿cómo están todos? ¿Bien? A ver, ya siéntanse, por favor. Yeah, we have a program. We have very important things to talk about today. Again, my name is Monica Villalobos. I am Chief Chancla Officer at the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and I wield that chancla pretty good, so y'all need to sit down. I am so excited to be here for the third annual All in Education MAPA Summit. A big round of applause for All in Education and their team. This report, this event is so important to help us make evidence-based decisions. So I'm excited to be invited back. I keep telling Stephanie, like, if you ever want to change up, I'm okay with that. But she puts me to work, so I'm happy to be here. How many of you are familiar with Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz? Ay, mira nomás, that makes me feel so good. So I think it's important to set context for you today because you're going to learn and you're going to take in a lot of information. And so for me, I feel like I'm a lifelong learner, still working on my doctorate. Everyone keeps asking. I'm ABD, almost finished, but it's work. It's hard work. And there are days when I'm like, there are no role models. Like, who do I turn to? We've got a few in the room, which is fantastic, but it's hard work. And Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz said something so important. She said, I study not to know more, but to ignore less. So today you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to learn to ignore less. You can't say you don't know because MAPA has it all, and we're excited to share that with you today. Latinos are continuing to help shape our communities, culture, and economy. We know that education has the power to transform lives. It is the great equalizer. But that transformative experience can either lead to success or hold back students from achieving their full potential because there's no roadmap, right? And that's what we're building together here. When a student's educational journey is deeply rooted in access to opportunity and quality education, the outcomes for that student lead to success, establishing a pathway toward building generational wealth, growth, and contributions to society. All in Education knows this to be true and continues their commitment to ensuring that every student in Arizona is able to access a quality and well-resourced school in their local neighborhoods, so that every student across every neighborhood finds success and can achieve their full talent and potential. And I'll just add to that, we need to break up those school to prison pipelines, right? We need to invest more in our students than in our prisoners. That was just my own personal note. This is what happens when you give me a microphone. MAPA, the State of Arizona Latino Education Power and Influence Report, will serve as a roadmap for all in education and our state in determining where there are gaps in Latino representation and academic outcomes that must be addressed to ensure Arizona is set up for success. To kick off our program today, I would like to start by introducing All in Education's Executive Director, our favorite and friend, Stephanie Para.
Wow, buenos dias y bienvenidos. Welcome everybody, good morning. I am so grateful that you are all here with us to share space, to be in community. And I really hope that what we have to share with you today moves us all toward action together, because that is exactly what our students in our communities need. They need us to stop admiring the challenges that they are facing, and they need us to act on their behalf. Our work at All in Education is deeply rooted in community. We choose to put our community first. We choose to listen to parents and educators, and we choose to center our work around students and their best interests. We firmly believe that our students and our families deserve leaders in the education system who will respect, honor, and value them in their classrooms and in their communities. And this is hard work, and we can't do it alone. So I am so grateful for all of our MAPA Summit sponsors that you see highlighted here on the screen today. And I want to give a special shout out to our and you should be able to see them on the screen soon. I want to give a special shout out to our Juntos streaming sponsor, Arizona State University, who's providing the live stream. And I especially want to thank our Paso a Paso sponsors, Helios Education Foundation, who is a big, important partner to All in Education, and Pharaoh's Foundation, another critical partner to our work. So thank you both and all of you for being with us today. This year, SRP is our Destino sponsor, and at this time, I would like to invite Jerry Mingura to join me on stage to give a few remarks on behalf of SRP.
Buenos dias, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Jerry Mingura. I am the Associate General Manager and Chief Human Resource Executive at SRP. SRP is proud to sponsor this event and to support local organizations like All in Education. You share our goal of ensuring that every child has equal access to high-quality education. Even more importantly, you are working to level the playing field for Latino students and many others in underserved communities who face barriers and resources and opportunities. It is about equity, inclusion, and representation for all students, pre-K through 12 and beyond. And those same fundamental elements must also apply when it comes to educational leaders and classroom teachers. For example, numbers from the MAPA report are consistent with other studies that I have seen that indicate in Arizona, nearly half of all pre-K through 12 students are Latino, but only 16% of teachers are Latino, and it's the same when it comes to administration. Students should have the opportunity to see themselves reflected in their teachers and in their school leadership. Having shared experiences through personal backgrounds, culture, and in many cases, language, will help build better, this paper's not working with me right now, learning environments that in turn build stronger communities across our state. We can and we must do better, and anything is possible when we come together as a community to create change. At SRP, we are deeply committed to investing in education. We provide about $1.3 million annually in education initiatives. We believe our support should be focused on what matters most, in the classroom, primarily in grants for professional development for teachers. It's never been more important, especially with the pace of change in technology, workforce demands, demographics, and societal dynamics. When teachers have the right training and resources that they need, our children will benefit and learn more. As technology advances and employers' needs evolve, such as SRP and other employers, we'll need a workforce who have the skills and ability to compete and succeed. SRP has a goal of developing a workforce with skills required to address the challenges and opportunities of the future. We also believe that our workforce should reflect the wonderful diversity of our community, and we are laser focused on making that happen. This is our home, and we all of us here have a stake in ensuring that our children receive high quality education and that they are prepared for the future. By helping our students succeed, particularly Latino students, we are making certain that Arizona will continue to grow and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jerry, and thank you to all of our sponsors for your continued support of All in Education and our work to build an Arizona where every child has the opportunity to succeed and thrive. And now at this time, your breakfast is coming around, so please enjoy. We are going to kick off with our report findings. And at this time, I'd like to invite All in Education's Research and Policy Director, Jeff Cetino, to join me on stage.
Hello, everyone. We're so excited to be able to share some of the data and some of our findings with you today and this morning.
Awesome. So a little bit of context on All in Education. We exist to build an Arizona where all communities have access to opportunity and justice. And we believe that we have to strengthen the power, influence, and authority of Latinos across every single level of education, from parents and working families to teachers, administrators, and school board members. When our students are adequately represented in classrooms and in boardrooms, we believe that that's when we're going to close the opportunity gaps that exist for them. The MAPA report, MAPA is the State of Arizona Latino Power, Latino Education, Power, and Influence. And we use this as an accountability tool for ourselves. So every year we will report on our progress to determine if our work at All in Education is taking the meaningful steps and creating valuable change for our community. So in the MAPA report for the last 3 years, we've highlighted, we've used it to provide perspective for our community on where Latinos sit in positions of power, influence, and authority. And as you can see here, from last year, we did see an increase, a slight increase in representation from 16 to 17%. So now Latinos make up 17% of teachers, administrators, and school board members. But at the same time, our Latino student population has grown from 45 to 47%. And we know that the student demographics here in Arizona are continuing to become more and more Latino. So we believe at our core that representation across our public schools is critical. The research actually tells us that it is absolutely critical. When you have a more diverse education workforce, you see higher achievement, increased attendance, and a decline in discipline issues.
And what we're seeing across the nation and here in Arizona is that we continue to grapple with the impact that the pandemic has had on academic outcomes and unfinished learning. As we continue to monitor math and reading rates, what we're seeing is that there's a persistent gap between white students and racial groups within Arizona. Even though last year we did see a little rebound, what's becoming more and more evident is that we need to focus on Latino students. So in these charts, what we're looking at right now is third grade reading proficiency. Latino students, third grade Latino students are reading at a 30% proficiency rate. Compared to white students are testing at a 56% proficiency rate, a 26-point gap. And when we look at math numbers, we're seeing the same trend. Latino students are proficient at only a 17% level. And when we look at white students, they're testing at a proficiency rate of 40%, a 23-point gap. Now, what's most alarming about this is that this gap is trending throughout four-year graduation rates and even post-secondary achievement. More alarming still are the numbers that we're seeing for our English language learners. For our English language learners, we're seeing a reading and a math proficiency rate at about 3%, and that's been hovering around that number for the past 10 years. Here in Arizona, English language learners are underperforming special education students, signifying significant flaws to the systems we've designed to support this population. In Arizona, we've consistently and we continuously deny English learners access to a quality education. Now, those numbers that I just talked about, they're not reflective of the talent nor the potential of these students, but they are reflective of our inability to adopt the policies, the practices, and the programs designed to better support this population.
That's right, Jeff. And Arizona Latino students currently make up the growing majority in our K-12 system. And the data that we have on the screen here is from the school district where I serve on the school board, Phoenix Union High School District, 92% students of color, 82% identify as Latino, and 77% qualify for free and reduced price lunch. I know I have some Phoenix Union family in the room. My superintendent actually let me know recently that this updated data, we're now closer to 95% students of color, and 85% qualify for free and reduced price lunch. So that matters because Phoenix Union has historically trended 10 years ahead of the city of Phoenix and 20 years ahead of the state of Arizona. And Arizona's demographics trend 20 years ahead of the country. So we have to make sure that we're getting it right for kids in Phoenix Union, kids in Phoenix, because they are the future of this state. And right now, unfortunately, the data is telling us that if you are a Latino student, that you are very likely growing up in poverty.
So we all know that the issues that Latinos, Black, Indigenous people of color, or BIPOC students face didn't arise overnight. But traditionally, we address and we talk about these issues in silos. So last year, All in Education introduced the concepts around the social determinants of education as a vehicle to expand the dialogue around educational outcome. And this past year, we've been able to identify 9 social factors that we believe play an important role in the educational attainment of our Latino students. These 9 factors are poverty, healthcare, mental health, the school-to-prison pipeline, housing, food insecurity, immigration, climate and environmental issues, and the last one being the economy itself. Sorry, my image was covering up the slide. So what we're seeing is that these social determinants form an interconnected web of social factors that all impact one another. When one rises, the others are affected. When one goes down, the others are affected as well. And if we truly desire transformational change, we're going to have to start addressing these issues holistically. And that means that we have to develop better cross-sectoral collaborations, public-private partnerships, and we have to be better at sharing both public and administrative set data so that we're better able to direct resources to the communities that need the most support and investment. So our communities and our students don't have another 20 years to recoup the losses that were made. And more importantly, our families cannot afford the loss of another generation to an educational system that has not provided an equitable education experience to Latino students.
Absolutely, Jeff. And these social determinants have to be at the center and at the forefront of our decisions as leaders. These 9 factors are severely impacting whether or not a child is coming to school prepared to learn and succeed. Mostly, they're impacting the overall health and well-being and safety of our kids and communities. In our research, we found that the most resounding social determinant for families was poverty, which is of absolutely no surprise to anyone who is working in Title I schools. Because poverty impacts a lot of factors, right? It impacts whether or not a child is food secure, whether or not they have access to stable housing, reliable transportation, access to quality health care, or mental health services. What we see, how this manifests in health-wise, is that these social determinants can be seen through childhood obesity, diabetes, and tooth decay. And unfortunately, this manifests into longer chronic diseases when kids become adults. Diseases like diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. So there is a relationship between health, education, and opportunity. The research shows that adults with higher education attainment actually have better health and have better health outcomes and longer lifespans than their less educated peers.
Thank you, Stephanie. The reality is that these social determinants impact some communities more than others. In a recent research and analysis done by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, they found that adults that live in South Phoenix have a life expectancy of about 71 years. and adults that live in Scottsdale, just a few miles away, a couple exits off the freeway away, have a life expectancy of 85 years. That's a 14-year loss of life. So let's sit with that number for just 1 second. What that means is that whenever you see a student in South Phoenix, that child is losing both quantity and quality of life. So because there is such a relationship between the social determinants, we wanted to take a look at the impact that it had on school ranking. And if we go to the next slide, please. So what we saw also is that it was sadly confirmed that there were other social factors that were associated with lower school rankings. And these social factors are children that have a parent with less educational attainment, single-parent households, families that are in the public health insurance system, and families without reliable transportation. So since we saw such a big correlation between poverty and local school rankings, we wanted to dive into those studies, and we wanted to look at household income. And what we saw was that Arizona families making under $100,000 a year, and that represents over 80% of Arizona's families, don't have access to quality education or to Arizona's top performing schools. So what that means is that access to quality education is becoming less and less accessible. And that's not just a us versus them question or a them versus us problem, it's an all of us problem. What we're seeing is that poverty is a strong driver of academic outcomes and healthcare outcomes, but also the housing crisis, violence, imprisonment, and even social spending. So we have to focus on the root causes to these social determinants. And we must focus, pay attention to, and address poverty and the burden that poverty is placing on our students and our school systems. And lastly, we have to double down and go all in on today's students of color if we want to build a prosperous Arizona for all.
Absolutely, Jeff. And I know that the data that we highlight at MAPA can feel overwhelming, but I promise you we will always equally present you with solutions at these summit events. We have a solution. All in Education believes that the path forward for our state, our students, and communities lies in the development of strong, effective, and values-based leaders across the education system. We must begin to view Latinos as an asset worthy of investment rather than a problem that we need to solve. And this is the exact approach that we are taking through our leadership development programs. And I'm excited to share with you that today, All in Education has 378 alumni leaders across the state who are ready to lead, drive change, and chart a new path forward for Arizona. And I know we have some of our alumni in the room. If you are here, can you please stand up? From our Parent Educator Academy, we have 343 alumni who have completed our program. Several of them have now enrolled in English courses. Others have re-enrolled themselves in college courses to continue pursuing their degrees. And 2 other participants have found our curriculum so inspiring that they've been motivated to join other leadership programs from All in Ed. From our Adelante Fellowship, we have Violeta Ramos, who just stood up. She is an alum who just is a teacher at Metro Tech High School and just won her election to serve on the Osborne Elementary School District Board. We have other Adelante Fellows who are now joining boards for nonprofit organizations and community-based organizations. The first cohort of Listo graduated in December of 2021, and since then, 4 leaders have been appointed to or joined district or charter school boards. One of our cohort participants, Dr. Dani Portillo, who's here in the middle, she was unable to be here today, but she was recently named the superintendent of the Roosevelt Elementary School District. So our programs are not only proving to be effective in engaging participants in the education system at every level, they are truly proving that our community is ready, is excited, and committed to being engaged in the solutions needed to change outcomes for the students they serve. And we are so grateful for their willingness to step up and lead. Thank you all so much for your time and attention. I will now turn the program back over to Monica to continue with the rest of the program.
Wow, right? Guau. That's wow in Spanish. Guau. So much information that we cannot ignore. I am so proud of the work that Stephanie and Jeff and Luis are doing with their entire team. It's important, and make no mistake, this is a war. It's a war on poverty. It's a war on discrimination. It's a war on the lack of parity in our education system. And Stephanie and her team are building the warriors. All those people who stood up, those are warriors. So we need to join them and really work to understand the data to make better evidence-based decisions. And MAPA is a wonderful resource and tool to do that. So thank you again for all of your work. It's incredible and amazing, and we need more. And we're going to stand in arms with you. I think what's really most amazing is the solutions. Most of you know I'm a data geek. If my favorite thing to do in the whole world is to sit in front of spreadsheets and find the story that the numbers tell. But that's half the job. That's half the job. We need to have solutions. And that's why the work that All in Education is doing is so incredibly important. And today we have a very special guest joining us. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to a Latino leader who is modeling the way, the new president of Northern Arizona University, Dr. José Luis Cruz Rivera. We were so excited when you came to Arizona. I have to tell you, I know that, it's not Puerto Rico, it's not, the East Coast, but it's better because we have more work for you to do here. Thank you so much.
Buenos días, mi gente. So thank you, Monica, for your leadership through the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and beyond. I really appreciate your kind welcome and all you do for the great state of Arizona. And of course, thank you to Stephanie and Jeff for presenting the key findings of the MAPA, the State of the Arizona Latino Education Power and Influence report. It is an important roadmap for the success of our students and our state, and I have no doubt that it will serve as a collective call to action for the dedicated and passionate individuals here today. It is a pleasure to be here this morning. Es un gran placer para mí estar con ustedes. It is truly inspiring to be in front of so many who work so hard day in and day out to change the narrative around Arizona education and Latino students. I was asked to share a little bit about my journey and how it is shaping my vision for NAU and higher education in Arizona and beyond. And the perspectives I bring today have been shaped by my experiences as a student, as an English learning student, as a parent of 5 children, and by a variety of leadership roles in higher education. But let me start by acknowledging that, as is the case for so many Latinos, my journey to where I am today and my connection to higher education has been a most improbable one. After all, I've been brown all my life and poor for much of it. My first recollection of hearing about higher ed, about college, about universities, is from a long time ago, early 1970s. It was a hot and humid night in the island of Enchantment, Puerto Rico, a night in which I could not sleep, because in addition to being uncomfortable, I was rather hungry. I went to air my grievances with my mother, and without missing a beat, she came up with a solution. The reason I was hungry, she said, was that la nevera está vacía. The refrigerator is empty. But fortunately for us, she said, because the refrigerator was empty, we could place my pillow inside of it for a few minutes, which would then lead to a much more comfortable sleeping situation. With that unbreakable logic, la lógica inquebrantable de nuestras madres, my mother not only fully addressed my grievance, she somehow thought of making the case as I drifted off to sleep of why I needed to go to la universidad. A life of learning and serving in higher education followed with significant emphasis on access for Hispanic and all underserved students and communities. The journey has included many stations along the way, including the University of Puerto Rico system, where I served as Chief Student Affairs Officer after a decade of serving in various leadership roles, both as a faculty member and administrator, at a university that is well known and a leading producer of graduates and knowledge in STEM fields, and is rightfully considered Puerto Rico's most important cultural project. I spent some time at the Education Trust in Washington, D.C., where I served as Vice President of Higher Education Policy and Practice, and currently serve as chair of its board of directors, an organization that is one of our nation's premier civil rights organizations committed to advancing policies and practices to dismantle the racial and economic barriers embedded in the American education system. I then spent some time in California, at California State University, Fullerton, where I served as Provost and VP of Academic Affairs, a university that is the third top producer of bachelor's degrees to Hispanic students in the nation. I then went back east to Lehman College of the City University of New York in the Bronx, where I served as the president at a university that is consistently ranked among the top 5 institutions in the country for social mobility. Then went on to the system office at the City University of New York, the world's largest and most diverse urban university, home to 16 Hispanic serving institutions and 500,000 students, where I served as Executive Vice Chancellor and University Provost. A university that has propelled almost 6 times as many low-income students into the middle class and beyond as all 8 Ivy League campuses, plus Duke, MIT, Stanford, and Chicago combined. And today, here I am at Northern Arizona University, where I serve as president, a university that has a 123-year legacy of providing a world-class education to students from all walks of life, including first generations to college, low-income Native American and Hispanic students from Arizona and beyond. So I share these stations of my journey because I think from that experience you can tell that the journey has benefited and been dedicated to the ideal promulgated by Horace Mann that education, beyond all other devices of human origin, is the great equalizer of the conditions of men, the balance wheel of the social machinery. And as the MAPA report so vividly illustrates, to meet the ideal, here in Arizona and beyond, we must expand access to opportunity by first acknowledging the historic opportunity gap in Arizona education. Second, enacting equitable educational policies and practices for English learners in Arizona. Third, addressing the social determinants of education that were so eloquently presented here today. Fourth, embracing the need to drive transformational change in our educational pipelines. And fifth, elevating values-based leadership, so well modeled by All In Education, to create the conditions for the coherence of action needed to meet the magnitude of the challenges we face. As someone who throughout his life has more often than not been the other in the room, the outsider looking in, the strange one hoping to become familiar, to become conversant, I cannot overstate the importance of this work. In fact, during my transition at NAU, I met a first-generation student who, upon introducing himself, proudly stated that he was a fourth-generation Arizonan from one of our state's resilient rural communities. I wasn't surprised by the pride Arizonans take in their relation to place, but was struck by the fact that it had taken 4 generations for his family to send one of its members to college. Indeed, I went on to learn that others in his family before him had wanted to go to college, but for many reasons did not. Reasons that included being place-bound to take care of family obligations, time-bound to accommodate the need to work to make ends meet, and the uncertainty that comes from being the first one in your family to dare to be the first one to pursue higher education as a means to meet your full potential. Unfortunately for this proud family, talent, hard work, and dreams had not previously been met with the corresponding opportunity to benefit from the promise of La Universidad. I find this unacceptable, NAU finds this unacceptable, and I fully know that this is unacceptable to all of you as well. And so just like the MAPA developed by All in Education, the NAU community came together a year ago to develop the NAU 2025 Elevating Excellence Roadmap, a strategic roadmap that positions NAU to be the nation's preeminent engine of opportunity, vehicle of economic mobility, and driver of social impact by delivering equitable post-secondary value to students and communities in Arizona and beyond. And in order to meet our vision, we acknowledge in our MAPA that for students and communities to reach higher, we must create the conditions that will fully develop their capacity to aspire and provide them the information, tools, skills, and supports they need to realize their dreams. So we at NAU are laser focused on setting a strong foundation upon which to expand access, committing to educate, support, and empower students from all backgrounds, identities, and lived experiences to reach their full potential and contribute to a more just, equitable, inclusive, prosperous, and sustainable future. A commitment, I am happy to say here today, we have backed up at NAU by launching a number of initiatives that ensure we are Arizona's leading engine of opportunity, working to remove barriers, promote access, and ensure every talented, hardworking student in our state has the opportunity for an excellent education. Some of these actions and initiatives include creating a pilot program that assures admission to NAU to all Arizona high school graduates with a 3.0 GPA. Now, the important part of this is all Arizona graduates. Prior to this pilot program, we required a 3.0 GPA, but over 16 core courses, only to find that there were 50,000 students in Arizona high schools. 20% of our high schools do not offer all 16 courses. So we removed that barrier and are looking forward to a very robust entering class this fall. And ironically, the courses out of those 16 that are most often not present in some of our schools, and we all know which schools we are talking about, was foreign language. Our students already speak two, right? Launching the Access to Excellence initiative, ensuring that all students from families with household incomes below $65,000 a year, that is more than half of all households in Arizona and more than 60% of Hispanic households in the state, can benefit from the excellence of an NAU education tuition-free. This Access to Excellence initiative, we more recently expanded to indigenous tribes, providing full tuition coverage for members of Arizona's 22 federally recognized tribes. Understanding that there's place-bound and time-bound considerations to the ability of our students to pursue their dreams of higher education, we launched, in partnership with the 10 community college districts and the Arizona Commerce Authority, the Arizona Attainment Alliance, A++, and we're working hard to develop initiatives at scale that will expand access and opportunity to careers of consequence. One of the major initiatives that we hope to formally announce in the month of February is universal admission. If you apply to NAU and for whatever reason you are not yet ready to be admitted to NAU, you will not receive a letter of rejection from NAU. You will receive a letter of admission from our partner institution in a community college near you with a guarantee that once you finish there, you're automatically admitted at NAU. We have advanced and expanded the Arizona Teachers Academy at NAU and currently enroll over 1,000 students. 5 years ago, we had 59. 1,000 students who will become future P-12 teachers in Arizona classrooms, changing the future of our teaching profession to be more reflective of our students with a Teachers Academy population at NAU that is compared to the 17% that we just saw, that is 43% Hispanic and 52% non-white. And in March, we'll be opening an early learning and child development center in Flagstaff. We hope to scale that out across the state to help support student parents completing their education, thus tackling the critical two-generation challenge. And of course, we're just getting started, understanding much work remains to be done. The report unveiled here today talks about Arizona's economic future being at risk, and I believe that statement is 100% true. So at a time when we're facing an annual shortage of more than 26,000 bachelor's degrees needed to fuel our new economy, we know that only 17% of current ninth graders in Arizona are expected to earn a bachelor's degree by the year 2029. So NAU's efforts and the efforts of everyone here today to expand access to an excellent and affordable education are as timely as they are invaluable. To Latino students, communities, the state, quite honestly, even to our nation as a whole, this can and will make a difference. Now, a lot of the work that we're doing at NAU is predicated on our commitment to delivering post-secondary educational value, equitable post-secondary value. And the idea here is that we ensure that students have an opportunity to access quality, affordable credentials that offer them economic mobility and prepare them to advance racial and economic justice in our society. And it is because of the profound effect post-secondary educational attainment has on the ability of working families to succeed, the competitiveness of our economy, that the delivery of equitable post-secondary value is among the most important challenges that higher education institutions and our nation currently face. We all know the economic benefits of narrowing these opportunity gaps, and so I will not go there. But I just want to stress that it is not all about social justice and the ability of individuals to gain access to an education that will provide them with careers of consequence and lives of substance, but also our ability to have those individuals then contribute to their communities to make a more just and prosperous nation. And so we are well on our way. At NAU this past fall, we admitted our largest, most accomplished, and highly diverse first-year full-time class in our 123-year history. And with the help of everyone in this room, we know that they will go on to do great things, not only for themselves and their families, but for the communities that they represent. So in short, we need to nurture more partnerships, launch more initiatives, and achieve better results as we work together to help our talented students from all walks of life meet their aspirations, work to expand the frontiers of knowledge, and engage with our local communities to build a more just society, a more perfect union, and a more sustainable future. Thank you all in education for charting the path and inviting a coalition of advocates, policymakers, and practitioners to join together in driving change. Muchas gracias y enhorabuena.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cruz Rivera, for lending us your voice and your expertise. It's great to see the direction that you are taking Northern Arizona University. I see you're very busy at work. We've got a lot more work to do, and we are so proud of the strides that you've made with our friends up in the north. Thank you so much. I know that you're really helping students thrive and succeed, and that's something that we can all do. As you can see today, you're not just hearing the data, you're hearing the solutions that are happening today, and all of you can be part of that. Now, with all of this impactful information fresh in our heads, I would like to invite up to the stage a group of experts that will help us unpack what we just heard. So I'm going to change hats a little bit. I get to be a panelist as well. And I'm going to transition this portion of the program to Luis Avila, president and founder of Iconico and board chairman and founder of All in Education. Luis will be moderating the panel.
Muchas gracias, Monica. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here this morning. Thank you so much, Dr. José Luis Cruz Rivera, for your leadership. Thank you for that bold vision that you are executing in our state of Arizona. I want to just, before we start, thank also the team, the All in Education team, for all this amazing work that they did, not only to put the report together, but to envision what is the narrative and what are the messages that we want to convey so that people take action here in the state? Can you help me give the team a big round of applause? I also want to thank supporters of All in Education, including sponsors and partners, the board, who has been an integral part of the creation of this organization, and also especially a big thank you to Stephanie Parra for her bold leadership and amazing vision to make this happen as well. I want to invite also the panel to join us in these amazing seats that we have behind me. And I want to first invite the President and CEO of the Helios Foundation, Mr. Paul Luna. Also in the panel will be the Vice President of Hispanic Serving Institutional Initiatives at U of A, Dr. Marla Franco. And finally, on the panel will be also Mr. Tomás León, President of Equity Health. Thank you, Tomás. So before... Hello, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Before we get started, I wanted to just ground a little bit, as Monica mentioned. I, along other people here in this group, created All in Education with the intention to really shift the way that we had conversations in the state of Arizona. We had conversations about education. We had educations about power. We had educations about change. I want to give a shout out to Leticia de la Vara because it was out of anger and finding out of the lack of representation that existed in our institutions that we envisioned this organization. Never we imagined that a simple idea that we wrote in a whiteboard will become this, will become what Stephanie Parra has been able to build with the team, and that it will create this network of powerful individuals daring to change the realities of our state. You know, the reality is that we created this because we wanted to be more than consumers. We wanted to be seen more as targets for product buying. We wanted to also be creators of products, founders of companies, CEOs, people who also could shape the future of the state. And I believe that we are. Because I believe that when people try to make a home of the state, either by generations or because they envision a place to live, they're imagining a different future. They're imagining a future that hopefully exists for them. And I think that's the idea of All in Education, is that we get to imagine the future, that we get to imagine a future that includes all of us and that prioritizes us as well. But it will take all of us to do that. More than just individual leadership and accomplishments, but truly being co-conspiring with each other to ensure that we can change things together. The power of All in Education is not only on the 370 plus graduates and alums that they have in their programs, but the fact that those 370 plus people are connected with each other and are conspiring to make a different future. And it's an invitation that I make to all of you in this room, that hopefully today when you walk away from here, it's not only that you're feeling inspired to take the bold action you will need to take to change the future of the state, but that you're willing to reach out and to also welcome in invitations from others to take action together. Just like Alma in the report, before we start with the panel, I want to also mention that there is a fallacy, I think, out there that our families don't know the problem. The Latino families are just ignorant to the situation that they're living in. If only they knew, I hear so often in education. The truth is, just like Alma in the report, we know that families actually know the problems that they're living. They live them every day. They live poverty. They live immigration broken systems. They live broken health systems that are not giving them access. The truth is that while they know what they're living in the situation, not always they feel powerful to work together to fix them. And I think that's the power of this organization and the conversation we're going to have today. Dr. Cruz Rivera talked about mothers, and I want to give a shout out to mine because of her that I am here today. She sacrificed so much, just like the parents of so many of us and the families of so many of us. And I want to tie that to the first question I have for the panel. Because during the pandemic in particular, we know that it impacted Latinos in much larger numbers than any other populations. Those consequences of some of our families sacrificing their jobs, sacrificing their well-being, and I know that it's having still impacts. Well, some of us want to be done with the pandemic. We know that it's still living it in many different ways. In the report that we read in MAPA, it says that Latinos were the most impacted by the pandemic, but COVID is not the sole cause for our current academic setbacks. Paul, you released a report about a significant decline in school attendance in the last few years. Can you share more about the key findings and how this relates to the social determinants of education? Tell us more about it and how it relates to this.
Well, thank you, Luis. Happy to do that, but first off, I know you want us to be brief. That's tough for me, so let me acknowledge that as well. Let me first thank yous and acknowledgments. On behalf of myself and Helios, thank you to you for your vision and leadership to help and lead the creation of All in Ed. And I know you always, in your style, defer to others, but we all know your leadership was critically important to this. So I want to thank All in Ed for ensuring that we continue to make Latino student success the priority focus in this community that it needs to be. And that's what we're here to talk about. And there are many factors that need to be addressed. But thank you to you, the board, to Stephanie, the staff. I know Adriana's on the board and Leticia. You know, the vision and the leadership that you're providing is critically important to us. And I want to make sure that you know how much we all appreciate that. You know, Latino student success from a Helios perspective has been our priority focus in Arizona since we helped to create the Dropped Report back in 2013. So as you say, you know, these challenges that we know we face and the importance of Latino student success is real. It's data-driven. We have and we know what we need to do and the importance of that. And this was all highlighted before the pandemic. What we see in the data that we put together, we produced from Helios, I think I want to make sure that we acknowledge. Much of what happened during the pandemic isn't that it created more issues or more barriers to student success. In many ways, what it really did is just it shined a bright spotlight on the challenges that predominantly existed before. And these issues affect our communities more than most. So this inequity in education existed before the pandemic. It continues to exist today, but now it's more important because the pandemic did impact our communities more than other communities. What we see in data now is student success for non-Latino, non-students of color tend to rebound because they were doing okay in the system before. Our students aren't rebounding. And one issue that has emerged that you highlighted is this issue of chronic absenteeism. It is emerging as a significant barrier to student success across the full education continuum. It's one that we have to be mindful of. It's one of the broader challenges of social determinants that need to be acknowledged, addressed, in order to ensure that our students are given the opportunity to succeed academically. So what is chronic absenteeism? So just to be real clear, it's defined by the data point of a student missing at least 10% of the academic school year. So in Arizona, that's 18 school days that a student might miss to be defined as chronically absent. But what I want to also point out is those are the students that are identified. We also know other challenges in our community, like mobility. Students are moving from school to school during the school year. So a student that might miss 15 school days in one school, transfer to another school, miss another additional 15 school days, might not be identified as chronically absent. So that's just a nuance of this data point, but it also, I think, heightens the importance and the awareness of what this particular challenge that we need to address and what it means to us. And simply stated, we say, well, why does it matter? Well, there was an ad campaign, if anybody's been in Arizona for a while, for the Arizona Lottery that used to say, if you can't win, if you can't play. Well, the reality is, as a student, you can't learn if you don't attend school. And it's as simple as that. Our students are not learning because they're not present. And when you think about the demographics that were shared earlier, where Latinos and students of color make up the majority of the K-8 school system, the data point that we now know about chronic absenteeism, and this should really kind of get all of our attention, is 1 in 4 students in the K-8 Arizona school system today, predominantly kids of color, 1 in 4 students is chronically absent. And when you take into account the others that are not defined that, a significant portion of our students are not in the classroom today, and they're falling behind. And when you think about the significant numbers of Latino students in the earliest grades, when in particular literacy and learning and reading is critically important, they're missing school, so they're not getting to the point of reading at grade level by 3rd grade. And we all know how important that is to lifelong learning, to then being able to be academically prepared for the vision that Dr. Cruz Rivera said about how we want all of our kids to be successful in post-secondary education. If they're not reading at 3rd grade because they're not in school, we need to acknowledge this, we need to address this. And that was really the point of trying to highlight chronic absenteeism. We convened a group recently, a number of you attended, to talk about this. 1, to highlight it, 1, to bring the data to the conversation, but just as importantly, to make sure we highlight, what are we doing about it and what is being done. And I do want to also, and Stephanie made this point, the data that we bring to these conversations is not just data for data's sake. It's to define, well, what do we do about it? And to acknowledge that we have many leaders in education that are already established best practices and focused on some of these issues. We had a chance during our convening to hear from Superintendent Hargrove at Avondale Elementary, who shared some very intentional activities of her team, all of her team, working together to address some of the social determinant challenges that we have, including chronic absenteeism. And some of those best practices are important to acknowledge that they exist, but we also need to understand what these challenges are and why they're important. So the MAPA report is so critical to that. It brings meaningful data to this. It reinforces these inequities, these challenges that we have in student performance. This report that came out clearly defines that our students are not reading at grade level the way their peer students are. That's a gap that has to be closed. So we want to raise awareness of this, but we also want to bring solutions to this. Happy to share one last point, and there's always a connection in our community, right? So when we had the convening, we had the ability to bring many media outlets to this. Chronic absenteeism is actually a crisis across the country. It's significant in Arizona. We have an opportunity in Arizona in this particular issue to actually lead the nation on what do we do about addressing it and how important it is, and especially when it comes to students of colors. And that's what we're trying to highlight. That's what we're trying to promote. We have an opportunity here to really lead the country in addressing how we make sure our students are in the classroom, and it comes down to connecting to the families, much of the work that you all do and what you acknowledged earlier. But I wanted to acknowledge that KTAR and Griselda Cetino, who, a little connection to Jeff maybe, and a little bit of influence there on data, but Griselda and KTAR is actually going to be doing a special series on chronic absenteeism starting on February 1st. So we're excited about that because that was part of what the outcome of the convening of bringing us together to talk about issues like this, but get to action, get to solution. That's one example of what we're going to do. So encourage your friends and family to listen to that. Listen to KTAR about chronic absenteeism, and then let's apply all that we can do, our resources, our strategies, our action to work together on that and all of the challenges that we know that are affecting the way students succeed. So I just wanted to highlight that and encourage us to move to action.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Helios, for the report. Is there where they can find it, the whole report also, Paul?
Yeah, please go to our website. You can find all of the Helios education briefs. We have one on a broader, just the lingering effects of COVID to talk more comprehensively. What are we seeing in data around the impact of COVID on student success? And then there's the one on chronic absenteeism. There's one about rigorous curriculum because we know how important dual enrollment is to our student success, for example. That's a special initiative as well. So all of those education briefs, all of our partner activities as well are highlighted on our website.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. Franco, in the report, we learned that, I was shocked when I read this, that a quarter, 25.6% of young people 16 to 24 were disconnected from work and school. I understand that your work focuses on the impact of poverty in higher education, in post-secondary education. Can you tell us how this impacts students' ability to enter college, how poverty impacts students to enter college and universities? But more importantly, how does it impact their graduation as well? Because for years we've been striving to graduate students from high school, then hopefully they enter college, but then that kind of like graduation has been an afterthought sometimes. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that important question. Thank you to All in Education for really this guidepost of a report. I think collectively we are all data-inspired, data-driven individuals that really are wanting to anchor our solutions informed by the data. So thank you so much for the work being done here. I serve as the inaugural Vice President for Hispanic Serving Institution Initiatives at the University of Arizona, and I'm really proud to be leading the work there with Dr. President Robbins at the University of Arizona, and certainly so excited to be partnering with community colleges and our four-year institutions across the state of Arizona around some of these issues. Poverty in college is a real thing. So the data that you saw that highlights those disparities within K through 12, those disparities and social determinants don't just cease to exist just because you've gotten an admissions letter to a university or a college. In fact, they follow you. I was actually in California visiting back home during the holiday break, and actually had a conversation with an alumni from a university that I had worked there in Southern California. And she actually reminded me that when she was going to college, they didn't have things like they do today, like the campus pantry, where you can access food, for example. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks because here at the University of Arizona and many other colleges and universities across the nation, there are a set of social services in place because we understand the myriad of social determinants that are impacting student success. So we very much are attuned to that and really try to leverage data to inform resource allocation, human resource allocation, financial and human resources, right? And deploy them appropriately informed by the data. In 2016, I actually had the opportunity to provide leadership in launching a campus climate survey at the University of Arizona. Such data collection efforts have since ensued, but that was our very first opportunity to really put a number to begin to understand some of these disparities. And essentially what we found out was that 1 in 3 students at the University of Arizona experiences food insecurity. 1 in 3. That population is disproportionately Latino, Native American, and Black, right? When we surveyed those students, 3/4 of them told us that they didn't even access a program or service to help respond to that need. And the reasons that they indicated for not accessing those essential services is 1, they didn't even think that they would be eligible. 2, they weren't aware that they existed. And if they did, they felt like they didn't know where to go to access them. That data at the University of Arizona helps give us a guidepost to effectively realign our efforts and resources to ensure that students, we clearly articulate the eligibility around things, right? We also communicate more clearly where things are located and train our faculty and staff and student employees across the university so that collectively as a campus community, we can be a resource to students. Interestingly, and I think, the linkage to some of these social determinants and the impact on education is that 1/3 of surveyed students indicated that the level of financial stress that they were experiencing either always or often negatively impacted their academic success at school. So we want students to come to college, right? I think collectively that's an aspiration that we have for the state of Arizona. We want our kids, though, to not only get what they need to make it to college, we want them to be retained. We want them to find purpose and promise in the things that they choose to study at our institutions. And we want them to live lives of purpose and promise in the workforce in the state of Arizona. That cannot effectively be done if we don't come to understand in a nuanced way, informed by the data, what the true reality, what the student lived experience is like. Those social determinants don't get left at the door when they step foot on our colleges and universities. It continues to be a reality. One of the things that the Arizona Board of Regents, right? Because how do we take a systems approach to this? And that's what I think we need to collectively also really kind of come together and find solutions in that direction, right? Because I think to kind of throw one pebble at a time, it's going to be arduous and it's not going to be expeditious enough to get to our community now, right? And so how do we take a systems approach to our problem solving? The Arizona Board of Regents has commissioned some work across its four-year institutions to really take a deep dive into the data to come to understand students' basic needs and to provide a responsive level collectively sharing best practices across the 3 4-year public universities, and also to really anchor some problem solving led by the Arizona Board of Regents that can systematically help problem solve across all 3 institutions instead of one by one going at it in silos. So, I think that we're very proud of coming to understand a little bit closer, the extent of these disparities, aligning our resources so that they're truly responsive to what students are telling us, and continuing to monitor that over time and making adjustments as needed. I think some of our solutions, we've got to be monitoring them and making adjustments to really continue to be responsive. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Franco. And we know one of the things that I really I'm taking away from this report and from your answer is this systems-wide approach, right? It's I think for a long time, education has been looked at what happens only in the classroom, which is critical. We know also research shows, right, that a highly effective teacher helps a student, sometimes gain even 2 grade levels in 1 year or less. So we know that that's important, but what's happening around them, it's even more critical as well. And I want to go with you, Tomás, on this, because the MAPA report that everybody has in their tables, and Jeff Cettino mentioned this, really enraging data point that says that people who live in South Phoenix live 14 years less than those who live in a place like Scottsdale, for example. And why that might be just a number, it's people who are living 14 years less than their other residents that live in the same city. And I'd like to dive deeper into this. Can you talk about the work that you're doing in the region, in particular in South Phoenix, especially with the Blue Zones Initiative, and how you relate it to education as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Stephanie and her team and All In Education. Your purpose-driven, inspirational, courageous leadership is motivating to all of us. I'm humbled to be here as a first-generation college grad, born and raised here in Arizona, in the barrio Hollywood and west side of Tucson, Arizona. and all my Tucsonans or body Hollywooders out there. And you know, third generation Hispanic American. So I'm humbled to be here and just you know, talk about lived experience. You know, we grew up hungry. We grew up with humble beginnings, very little, and a lot of barriers to overcome. And it's great to be here among you all here, interested in figuring out how do we create a better path forward for young people to achieve their highest potential. And I love that you connected health and well-being with education. Because what's happening in education is what's happened in healthcare. In healthcare, we've focused for a long time just on physical health. And then we started focusing on mental health. And then we started focusing on whole person care, whole person health, and looking at all of the determinants that impact and influence your health and my health, our well-being. And it's more than just physical health. Before you step even 1 foot in the doctor's office, like before a student steps 1 foot inside a classroom, they're already impacted by the social determinants of health. 80% or more of what impacts the health and well-being of a student, a family, an individual are the social determinants of health. So more and more, the healthcare field is focusing on whole person health and starting to address the root cause issues, the social determinants that are influencing an individual's health and well-being, just like education. So I love that we're not isolating education alone. We're looking at all of the factors that are impacting the full potential of that child, of that young person. So we've spent a lot of time in City of Phoenix, Maricopa, throughout Arizona, responding to this pandemic. We have reached nearly 90,000 individuals with testing, vaccinations, medical care, social support, thanks to a diverse alliance of public-private partners. We didn't do it alone. We locked arms with a lot of public-private partners. And we spent a lot of time in South Phoenix, in greater South Phoenix. And, you know, you mentioned the impact of the pandemic has had a detrimental impact on communities of color. In fact, you have to add 3 more years of loss of life to the 14-year disparity gap, because the pandemic has caused 3 years of loss of life for the Black and Hispanic community. That's 17 years of loss of life. That's a major disparity gap. Didn't happen because of the pandemic, I mean, just solely because of that. It exacerbated all of the historical and root cause issues and systemic and institutional racism and discrimination. Inequalities already existed in communities of color that were diverse and underserved and under-resourced. So we decided to focus on South Phoenix and greater South Phoenix to launch a pandemic recovery to facilitate healing, recovery, resiliency, and well-being, because there's a tremendous amount of barriers to overcome in South Phoenix and greater South Phoenix. And so we launched this Blue Zone Well-Being Initiative. We just completed a feasibility and readiness assessment. You can find it on our website at equalityhealthfoundation.org. And we assessed the assets, the strengths, the needs, the opportunity for transformation that were impacting greater South Phoenix, focused on 9 zip codes, 280,000 residents. And we want to figure out where are the opportunities for transformation, and how can we lock arms with public-private partners to get behind the residents of South Phoenix and improve quality of life and longevity of life. And education is a key component to making that happen. And so we're getting ready to move forward to implement this well-being initiative. It's a 5+ year initiative. And you know, we're looking forward to partnering with all in education, and many of you here in this room, if you have an interest in getting behind the residents of greater South Phoenix area to transform the community. And it's all about addressing policy, people, where people live, work, play, and pray, and people strategies. Americans spend 90% of their time within 20 miles of where they live, where they work, where they play, and where they pray. And so there's a zip code effect that's impacting our young people and families. And the data and the research shows that your zip code, your surroundings, influences more your health and well-being than your genetic code. So your zip code influences your health outcomes and your health and well-being than your genetic code. And there's a strong, as you mentioned, correlation between education and someone's health and well-being. But it takes a holistic approach as you're leading to focus on addressing all those root cause issues that'll create a better environment for our students, our young people, to achieve their highest potential for health. And I'll just close by what we believe at the Equality Health Foundation. We believe in a society of healthy communities where every person, you and I, can achieve our highest potential for health. Well, we have the same belief for students, that if we rally around them and we lock arms and we take a holistic approach, we can and we will help them achieve their highest potential for health. And from a business perspective, there's research that shows diverse companies and businesses increase shareholder value, retain and improve customer satisfaction, retain and attract employees more. So it's not only the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. It's a business and economic and imperative for this state. But we have to shift our mindset from looking at young people as a cost and look at them as a valued investment in the future of our community and the future of our state here. So I'm excited to be here. As you can tell, I get fired up about this topic and getting behind and locking arms with all of you on this panel and out here in the audience too. We have to accelerate progress. This is not it's a nice thing to do. We really have to address also the political determinants of health and education, because the policies that we set today is going to impact and influence and impact the future of our young people and the future of our state. Thank you.
So much. Thank you, Tomás. And I want to say thank you, Monica, for being also the MC for the second year. Monica, we didn't know had this amazing talent, and now we're thinking about her all the time for this. But I mentioned earlier, Monica, how I felt that Latinos sometimes are seen only as consumers, right? Mm-hmm. But we're projected to become a majority in this state. Mm-hmm. And in the future also, as we mentioned in the report, BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, actually by 2027 it's projected that these groups will be majority in the state. But, we can be a majority, but demography is not destiny, right? Mm-hmm. We can be a majority and still live in a state where inequality and inequities are so big that we have a stagnant society. So what I want to kind of ground this is, how does this reality impact the economic viability of Arizona? How do we address this reality as a state? Because I feel like this is something that is very common sense, but I don't see our decision makers taking that approach. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the question. There's a whole other conference called Datos where we address that very issue, but I will try to encapsulate it today. And I do want to address some of the things that my fellow panelists have said. I love that this initiative, that All In Education, the sheer name, right? We're all in. We're going to leave it all on the field. We're going to work that hard. But I love that it came from a place of anger, from coraje, right? And now we're channeling that coraje. So thank you, Leticia, for being angry for all of us. We really do appreciate it. And it's important. It's really, really important for us to make sure that we don't just get mad. We don't just get angry. We don't just wave our fist in the air and say, this is an injustice. We have to demand more, not only of the systems, but of ourselves. And when I think about absenteeism, and Paul was talking about that, as I Tokyo drifted my kids into school today because they were running late, and the lecture that I gave them on the way in was, I can get you to the door, but you're going to have to walk through that door. You need to get in the car early to get into that door. Now, I'm sure that the children we're talking about have much more dire issues and are absentee for very different reasons. But if we don't inspire our children to want it, it doesn't matter what we do. They have to want it for themselves. And I think that's a critical piece of all of this, right? And then as far as food insecurity, we talk a lot about that. I can remember when I was at UCLA, I didn't even realize until Marla started talking about it, how food insecure I was. There was a place near UCLA that had a $1.50 foot-long sandwich, and every week on Monday I'd buy one, and then I'd cut it into pieces, and that was my one meal a day for the whole week. And it really, when you were talking about that, I thought, I'm that statistic, right? We see ourselves in those statistics. And so we need to start seeing ourselves in the good statistics just as much as we see ourselves in the bad statistics. The social determinants, right? Tomás is one of my board members and a foundation chair. And I know we work very closely with Vitalist, who's here today. And they introduced us and our data to the elements of a healthy community and how important it is to understand that even if we solved the education issue, we're asking children to go to school who don't have food in their bellies, or hungry, who don't know if their parents are going to get home, if they're going to be home when the children get home because they could be deported, who don't know where they're going to sleep at night. And we want them, we're surprised that they're not figuring out math. Let me tell you, during the pandemic, I had to figure out 5th grade math. It is not easy. It's not easy. And if you have all of these other things on your mind, our kids are just trying to survive. And so for us, I think it's important to understand that education is an investment. It's an investment in our future. Latinos are 30% of Arizona, 40% of Phoenix Metro, 50% of our K through 12 system. That is the future. And so from a business community standpoint, we need to understand that these consumers and producers, right, are also 10 years younger than the rest of the population. And they're ready to roll their sleeves up. But we have to provide those opportunities. I always say, if you're doing business in Arizona, you are a Hispanic business, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not. That's just the demographic base, right? And so I think we are in a unique position in Arizona, demographically, geographically, economically, to set the tone for the rest of the country. This is ground zero. This is where it starts, and what we do here will ripple across the country. And I think we need to take that and really, it's a huge responsibility, but it's something that is so important. From the business community, oftentimes I have folks say, well, you're a Chamber of Commerce. Why are you so interested in education? That's my future workforce. That is our succession plan. So if we don't invest in education as an investment, right? That's what it is. It's not charity. This is our future workforce, our future entrepreneurs, and our future politicians. And what kind of future do we want? So I think economically what we're seeing is Latinos really coming into their own. And I'm just so proud of everything that All in Education has done to help in that role, and everyone on this panel, everyone in this room. It's going to take all of us. And I'm proud to stand with you.
Thank you so much, Monica. And I think, yes, let's give them all a round of applause. I wanna ask one last question. I asked here, Stephanie, I was like, can I ask one more question? And rather than going through each one, in panels where like each person answers a question, I want to see who is ready to answer this question. Maybe one or two of you, and I'll let you all negotiate. But look, this is the thing we saw also in the data that Jeff and Stephanie presented, that really quality education is related to your income, right? We saw that the majority of folks who live in this state make less than $100,000 in their family, and that they are in lowest performing schools. The folks who are making more than $100,000 are in higher performing schools. We saw also in the report, and I invite you to check it out, some schools that are beating the odds actually in this, right? That they serve low income students, and they're doing really well in the results. And they're both charters and district schools that are doing really well. I invite you to do that. But we're living a reality right now. We are in the thick of a conversation also about potentially people with money getting more money from the state to send their kids to private schools We are seeing conversations about these investments. We are really in a really important time to figure out education. And my question to all of you is, what do you think needs to be happening in the state to really refocus our decision makers to take real urgent action? And the question that I want to ask you is, I wanted you to direct it to the group of folks who are in this room who work in districts and nonprofits and public and private sector. What do people in this room need to be thinking, pushing, acting on to ensure that we change this reality? Easy question.
I'll give it a shot here. Well, I think it's taking this holistic approach so that education is not isolated from a policy-making perspective, because education is key and critical to making the business case, the economic case, and the health and well-being case. So there's a strong correlation, as you mentioned, in terms of the research. So we really need to educate our politicians on the full impact and the importance of education for the future of our state and the future and health and well-being of our companies and corporations and the health and well-being of Arizonans. And so I think that's imperative and upon all of us to make sure that we not only educate ourselves on all the factors that influence that young person and advocate for policies in terms of funding and the access and the quality and the social support that's needed for that young person. But we need to make sure that you talk with your politicians, your legislators, your elected officials to make sure they understand that case statement. And we need to do that with data, as you mentioned. We need to drive decision-making and building awareness with data and taking that action as an individual, as a company, as an organization. For example, we partner with the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to establish the Tony and Melena Éxito Scholarship Fund. And that was to support young people who had an interest in getting into the healthcare field. I don't know but less than 8% of physicians are Hispanic and Latino across the country. That's appalling. So if we're going to try to evolve the healthcare delivery system to be culturally competent, meet the needs of our growing Hispanic population across the country and here in Arizona, then we have to get more young people into that pipeline to become healthcare providers, healthcare administrators, healthcare innovators. And so we're working on that, supported by Helios Foundation, with support from the Arizona Community Foundation and others who have joined our effort to eliminate that barrier to access to funding for young people. And then we need to support that with other mentoring and internships opportunities and employment opportunities as well. But those are the types of actions that need to be taken, and it has to be cross-sector public-private partnerships to make that happen.
Anybody else?
Well, if I could add, two things. Let's begin with the acknowledgement of the anger, right? Partly, it's we as a community have to demand quality education for all of our kids. Because clearly it's not just going to be given. History has proven a comfort level many times with our own leadership, who often will say there are no challenges in education in Arizona. You hear statements all the time, we know how to educate our kids. Our kids do just fine. Well, you start to have to challenge the question, what do you mean by our kids? Because more and more the narrative in education is that it's not valued, it's not necessary. Not every kid needs to go to college. Not every kid needs to pursue any academic success after high school. And it's not to suggest that that's the only pathway, but it's interesting when you ask folks who often advocate that not every student needs to go to college, when you ask them what their kids do, oh my, they're going to college. So it's those kids tend to be our kids. So that's why the importance of all in ed becomes critical, because we're demanding educational equity for all of our students, all of our communities, all of our families. That's what's important. And that's the narrative we have to change, I think, in our state, is to change the culture of understanding of, do we really believe in all and success for all students? And I think secondly, and I wanted to make sure we make a point of this, we as a society have become very comfortable, and I think this is a good thing. We often, I went to the Phoenix Suns game and they were thanking first responders. And we thank the first responders for their service, and they deserve that. We thank our military personnel for their service, and they deserve that. What we don't often do is thank our teachers and our educators for their service. Because all of the social determinants that we're talking about and this increased awareness and understanding of the challenges that students and families face in being successful in education, well, we lay that all on the schools to solve, and we expect them to solve it. So we've got to change that mindset of our leaders as well, is it's not solely the responsibility of the superintendent, and I know we're going to recognize one of our great ones here today. It's not just for the superintendents and the teachers and the administrators and the staff at the schools to solve all of these challenges. And oh, by the way, make sure they graduate and make sure they do this and make sure they do that, because we're going to hold you accountable. We, and I think this was Tomás was saying, we all have a role to play. And our leaders have a role to play. And it's not just pointing the finger at where they're unhappy with accountability. They have to step in and solve, they have to invest, they have to be committed, and they have to be committed to all students. And that's what we have to demand.
Thank you so much. I want to close with saying that I hope that you all notice that the whole purpose of this MAPA report is not only to show you the reality, the data, the stories, but that also it's an invitation to and a call to action, right? Maybe one day a week we get together, we get a little angry or a lot of angry, and then we think and talk to each other about how to change this reality. So that the rest of the year, we are these incredible, imaginative, resilient people that we are, because we are that. We've overcome bigger challenges than the ones that we're facing right now, as individuals, as families, as communities, and I invite you to do the same. I want to thank the panel for your work, for your focus, and for all the wisdom and data that you shared today. Help me please give them a last round of applause.
We are learning so much. We need a hashtag, channel coraje, right? Hashtag channel coraje. We'll make that trend today. You know, it has been my absolute pleasure to MC with you today, to be a panelist, to be able to share and really understand that it's not just about changing those systems, it's about us, right? Each and every one of us can do something today. Our mindset has to change. Education must not be just an opportunity for some. It must be a non-negotiable for all in our community if we're going to make a difference. So I want to thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to bring up Stephanie back to the stage to present our Advocate in Action and Parent Power Award and close us out for the day. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Wow. Are you feeling inspired? Because President Cruz Rivera had me crying over here. This panel has me like, yes, cheering. So this is what MAPA is about. It's about giving you a dose of inspiration and a big dose of hope for the future. And I just, one more time, Monica has hosted us for 3 years. Can we please give the hostess with the mostest? So in the midst of all of the challenges that we've outlined here, as I said, I'm so hopeful about the future of Arizona because there are so many incredible leaders across the state who are driving change and taking action. And so we definitely at MAPA will also always recognize the leaders in our community who truly embody our theory of change. And this year, we're celebrating 2 powerful leaders that are bringing transformational change to their work and to the lives of the people in their communities. They are who we see as the leaders that bring their community along by listening and understanding their needs. So the first award we want to recognize, our 2023 Advocate in Action. This is an individual who has worked hard to create a school systems where all families and all students feel valued, loved, welcomed, and respected. Dr. Trujillo, Dr. Gabriel Trujillo serves as the superintendent of the Tucson Unified School District, which includes over 40,000 students and families, and he oversees 89 schools in the system. Dr. Trujillo still ensures to make time to meet with parents and caregivers to meet their needs and find solutions to their concerns. Dr. Trujillo and TUSD have welcomed the Parent Educator Academy and embrace the parents and caregivers in our program as valuable partners in his community. Please join me in recognizing an incredible superintendent, Dr. Gabriel Trujillo. Do you want to say anything? If you want to make a couple remarks, yeah.
Wow, this is absolutely amazing, but this award really belongs to the school communities, the parents, the employees, and the hardworking heroes of the Tucson Unified School District. You know, we've done a lot of amazing things in Tucson Unified. We have served over 5 million meals through the expansion of our grab-and-go programs in every school, landing punches against food insecurity throughout the district. We have tripled the amount of Latino students participating in AP and gifted and talented programs. We've brought free childcare through every corner of the district. I can go on, but the one thing that we are most proud of is the work that our school, community, and parent liaisons have done in every single campus in activating the power of Latino parent advocacy, having an unprecedented amount of parents now joining us at the table at the site level for the first time in many years, talking about transportation issues and student discipline issues and academics and resources and how I get my child to college. And that's where the power lies for the Latino community, when you can get our parents, when you can get them involved at the site level and you unleash the power of agency and advocacy, you can do wonderful things. And when it all comes together, there is nothing more inspirational. If you're ever in the Tucson area and you want to see this in action, you want to see what it looks like when everything comes together, you can go to places like Van Buskirk, where I have a 92% Latino population. I have a school-wide Title I population, but it is an A-rated school of excellence. You can go to John B. Wright, my largest K-5 elementary school in the system with over 600 students, where 1 in 3 students is either a student with a learning disability in a special education program, a refugee student, an English language learner. It is 96% free and reduced lunch. It is 94% Latino, and it also is an A-rated school of excellence. And those 2 schools feature my largest parent leadership groups, and they're doing some outstanding work. So I want to thank All in Education for recognizing the Tucson Unified School District for this amazing work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Trujillo. Next, we would like to honor an incredible individual that has shown leadership, development, and commitment to the community. She truly lets us know that anything is possible. This person participated in the 3rd cohort of the Parent Educator Academy in spring of 2022 and is actually a current Adelante Fellow going through that program. We've also had the pleasure of seeing her grow and find her power as a community leader. She has shared her story with us and elevated her voice with pride through our Pa Que Sepas series, and she's truly a model of leadership. Karina Ruiz de Diaz's commitment to growth is outstanding. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here with us today, but please join me in celebrating her leadership. So as I mentioned at the top of the program, the work that we do is hard and important, and we can't do it alone. So again, I want to make sure that we express our profound gratitude to our sponsors for today's event. Our Destino sponsor, SRP, our Paso a Paso sponsors, Helios Education Foundation and Pharaohs Foundation, Our Adelante sponsors, Vitalist Health Foundation and ADM Group. Our Juntos streaming sponsor, ASU's Educational Outreach and Student Services. And our Juntos sponsors, ASU's Teachers College, the Arizona Board of Regents, the Center for the Future of Arizona, the Colibri Collective, Goodman's, LaCroix and Milligan Associates, Mario Diaz and Associates, National Bank of Arizona, TNTP, Unidos US, and Valley Leadership. Thank you all for supporting our work. Your partnership is so greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. So I'm going to try not to cry because they're here in the room this year. This work is so deeply personal to me. I want to extend my profound appreciation and gratitude to the two individuals who have been the catalysts to my personal why I'm here, why I have such a deep passion for educational equity, and why my work is centered around parents. It's because of my mom and dad, Oscar y Dora Parra, who are here with us today. Like President Cruz Rivera and like all of you, we have our parents, our first teachers who instill values in us. And my parents taught me to have a very deep value for my education. They taught me that it was my path to opportunity, and they are absolutely the reason why you have me standing here in front of you today. So again, my parents, one more round of applause for them, please. And Luis mentioned this, I also want to extend my personal gratitude and appreciation to my incredible colleagues on the All in Education team. I don't do this alone, y'all. Anaís Ballesteros, Jeff Cetino, Livier Delgadillo, Brianna Cisneros, Liliana Hutchison, Danny Hernandez, Mirka Martinez, and Atenas Rodriguez. They all make this possible. So please, can you join me in celebrating their talent and leadership? And of course, to our board of directors, Luis Avila, who you heard from, Adriana Murieta, Leticia de la Vara, and Gabby Cardenas. Thank you for your support and partnership. And thank you to all of you for being here today. A special thank you to our elected officials. We have dignitaries and special guests in attendance. I know we have representatives from Governor Hobbs's team, state legislators, and representatives from the state boards of education, state officials, local school board members, and superintendents. And of course, if you're an educator, you have my profound appreciation. So thank you all for being here and for being the leaders that our community needs. So at All in Education, we understand the importance of listening to our community. The foundation of our work is centered around viewing our community as an asset that deserves investment. As leaders in education, it is time to center students and their best interests in our decision-making. It is time to confront the historical disparities and opportunities that have been afforded to Latinos and BIPOC individuals and low-income communities across our state. It is time that we, the adults in education and public policy, hold ourselves accountable. Holding ourselves accountable means that we are consistently monitoring the data and that we are comfortable confronting when a policy, practice, or program is not working or producing the intended results. And finally, accountability at its core is about responsibility. As the adults in public education and public policy, we hold the responsibility to serve children to the best of our abilities. We have a duty to put children at the center of how we govern and make decisions. And most importantly, we must never shift that responsibility to the children we are serving. I'll leave you with one final thought. A friend and colleague to All in Education, mi compadre, Dr. Jacinto Ramos Jr., tells our leaders that in education, student outcomes will not change until adult behaviors change. So join us in being the adults that change our behavior. Join us in centering students in our decision making. Our team at All in Education is ready for action. Our 378 alumni leaders are ready for action. As I look out to this room, I am inspired by all of you, because look around. We are power and hope in action, and I firmly believe that we can and we will build an Arizona where every child has access to a high-performing, well-resourced school where they can thrive and live up to their full talent and potential. Thank you all for participating in the MAPA Summit. I am so grateful for you. Don't forget to download the report. You have that on your QR code. And we invite you to also support us by investing in our work. You have QR codes on your tables, or you can visit us at alllineducation.org/donate. And the last thing, because we are Latinos, the centerpieces are for you to take home. So first come, first serve. And if you need a parking validation, please make sure to visit the registration table. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your week.